our lives and our very existence. Don't let the enemy tell you that it's not. God said so, and it is. Come on, you know the drill. Let's pray on this Monday. Father, we thank you, Lord God, for this Monday. We ask that you would touch lives, Lord. Open the eyes of their hearts, Lord, that they might see that they have purpose, that they are valuable, that they, Lord, have been created with passion and purpose. Lord, we thank you so much, Lord. Now, Lord, let us go into your word, Lord, to show your people that they have purpose and that you are a God that creates with purpose and passion and precision. And it is in Jesus' holy name that we pray. Amen and amen. Good morning, brothers and sisters. This is William the Encourager. And again, we're talking about life with purpose. Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 11 says, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace, not of evil, to give you a future and a hope." When I look at these scriptures, I hear God saying this clearly: you are not here by accident. You are not random. You are not a mistake. God has already written purpose into your life before you ever took your first breath. Jeremiah tells me God already has a plan. Romans tells me even the pain fits into your plan. Ephesians tells me I was designed for something specific. Proverbs reminds me that even when I think I know the way, God's purpose is what still stands. And Matthew tells me my life is meant to shine so others can see him through me. Purpose is not something you chase. Purpose is something you discover in Christ, my brothers and sisters. Here's an analogy, the GPS analogy. Life without God is like driving without directions. You may move, but you're not arriving. God's word is your divine navigation system. Here's a biblical story of purpose. Joseph in Genesis 37 through 50. What others meant for evil, God used for purpose. Joseph's pain positioned him for purpose. Here's a real life style story. A man loses his job, but that loss leads him to start a business that blesses others. Purpose was hidden in the setbacks. We never know what God is doing until we know and we can be sure of his purpose. That's when we know that God is in the equation. Purpose is not found in what you have, but in who you follow. This is where purpose is found, my brothers and sisters. And when we begin to realize that God is at the head of it, then we understand. But remember, there's a way out of your mess, and it's JESUS.
Where can you buy a brand new Nissan with a lifetime warranty? Kingston Pike. Hey folks, Gerald Anderson with Ted Russell Nissan. You heard it right. Every new Ted Russell Nissan comes with a lifetime warranty, and that's a long, long time. Ted Russell Nissan on Kingston Pike.
Good morning and welcome to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Ask Your Neighbor can also be heard and seen on our website, WYSHradio.com. And if you are in Anderson, Rome, or Morgan County and have Comcast cable, you can watch Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV Channel 12. Ask Your Neighbor is the program where you call in and do just that. Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a comment? Do you have a problem? Or do you have a question? Then call in and ask your neighbor. 865-4 457-1380 or toll free at 877-711-4005. And for those of you that might be listening or watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into Ask Your Neighbor. We are very happy to have our mayor and candidate for mayor, Mayor Terry Franks, with us. Mayor.
Good morning.
Ron.
Glad to be here.
Good to have you here. Commissioner Anderson, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
I hope you guys, it's good to have you all here. I appreciate it. We were talking before we went on. Both of these folks have been with me on the air before. You guys know that. So we're just going to do this like we've always done. I want to start out, though. You know, politics gets, even locally, it gets nasty. And I think sometimes we forget we're all neighbors and friends at the end of the day. But, and I'll start with you, Mayor, just because you're the elected official. Tell folks a little bit of just about you. You, Terry Frank, your family, kids, whatever you would like them to know.
Sure. Well, on my dad's side, I'm an 8th generation Anderson Countyan. So my dad's side comes from New River, coal mining folks, coal mining people. And then on my mom's side, my dad eventually went into coal sales, and he met my mom on the circuit there. She was going through a nursing program at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So they moved here, grew up in Oliver Springs, graduated from Anderson County High School. I've been here my whole life, except when I went away for college. I went to Swanee for 2 years, then transferred over to Middle Tennessee State University and got a degree there in political science. So completely unemployable. So I met my husband Lee in class. He actually sat behind me in political science class, and he came back to Clinton with me. And we got married, started a family right away. We have 3 sons. They're all grown now. We've got 2 daughter-in-laws now and 4 grandchildren. And when we first started out, we didn't have we knew we wanted to do something where we could have our children with us at work and kind of work with us. And we didn't have a lot of startup money. So we started with produce, and we'd go over, buy the first round of produce and then make your profits and then buy more. And we eventually morphed into a lunch spot. People next door at Austin would come in and say, hey, you got all these vegetables, can you make a salad? And so it just kind of grew from there. And we did that for 20 years. I guess it was a little over 20 years by the time Lee shut it down. And we had just, both of us, I got involved in politics, I guess you would say, in college. I mean, in high school, I set up a voter registration booth outside the cafeteria at Anderson County High School, and I helped other people run for office. But probably on my own, I really got involved. I just was a fan of Ronald Reagan, and I decided to get involved and got really involved in college Republicans. And then once, we started our family, then I started getting involved in the YRs and just helping other people run for office. And then eventually it just, I had some folks say, you should run. And my initial gut response was, no, I just help other people run. And then I started thinking about it. Well, why not? My older boys are practically grown. If I did win, I'm 2 minutes from the courthouse, I could still keep an eye on the younger son. And because I view that as like my number one job. And, the rest is I've just been serving in office. Yeah. So, yeah.
There you go.
A little bit about my background.
Thank you. Josh, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my family got here in 1924, so I guess we're relative newcomers in the county. But 4th generation, they bought the farm on, my great-grandparents bought the farm on Brooks Gap where I grew up. Still got the farm, of course. It just turned 100 in 2024, so we got our Century Farm plaque and everything from the Department of Agriculture. Got to grow up with raising cattle, Holstein replacement heifers mostly, and then we got into steers after that. Prior to that, before I came along, they raised tobacco and that sort of thing. And so that's been kind of an interesting thing just to see all the dairies. I helped some 4-H kids do kind of a history of the dairy in Anderson County, and there's no dairies left in Anderson County. So it's kind of interesting to see that being such a common thing, and everybody kind of having a half acre of tobacco. And now it's just complete memory. The county just has morphed and changed so much, even in my lifetime. So got to grow up in the Fairview community, went to Fairview Elementary, graduated Anderson County High School, graduated UT with an agriculture degree. Probably what got my really interest peaked in politics. I'd always been kind of interested in presidential politics and that sort of thing. The 250th anniversary we're going having this year, I was always jealous of my older sisters and older cousins because they got to go through the bicentennial. That was just the coolest, those pictures and stuff. That was the coolest thing in the world to me. My start came in when I was in high school, got interested in student government and that sort of thing. That was around the time Don Sundquist was the governor. State income tax was a big issue back then. They were always having trouble at the state level, kind of getting the budget balanced and passing the budget. So it seemed like just every time you turned around, the state parks were being shut down locally. With the school funds, the extended contracts for a lot of the programs that I was interested in got cut, so they couldn't afford to pay anybody to stay at school with the kids. And at the time, we were talking, it was $7,000 or $8,000 is all the money it was, but it killed several programs, several after-school programs. So that's kind of where I got my first taste of local government, was kind of coming up with a plan and going to the school board to speak to them and say, hey, use some of your unassigned fund balance to keep this going, because this is who this helps, And we were successful, and so that kind of got the wheels turning in my head that, hey, yeah, presidential politics is important, but this stuff at the local level is really where you can make a difference. It's where you can help your family and your friends and your neighbors, and really make that impact that you can see, whether it's with ambulances or roads or fire trucks. It's something you can really see at the local level. So that's where I really started paying more attention locally. Did not really get active locally until actually my neighbor Johnny Alley got elected property assessor. That created a vacancy on commission, and 9 people ran for 1 seat in a special election, and that's when I ran for the first time, and just didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I wanted to run and did it, and came in 4th, and so from that point I thought, well, I'm going to try this again and again, and finally got elected in 2018, and this is my 2nd term, and I told people I would do 2 terms as commission and be done, and was fortunate enough to be the chairman for 3 years. And so I feel like I'm kind of in a bonus round right now. It was kind of a lifelong dream come true, just to get elected and to serve. And so I'm pretty happy with what we've accomplished in 8 years as commissioners.
Okay. I'll start with you, Josh. I was just going to ask you, what do you believe that you can bring to the office of county mayor that Mayor Frank has not? What do you feel like that you can do as county mayor that we're not doing today?
I still feel like there's a significant portion of the county or population of the county that doesn't feel like they're listened to, or they're getting any kind of response or help at the local level. And that's not just one group. That's just kind of an accumulation of people, whether it's people that have an issue with something that's coming before the planning commission or the zoning commission, and they feel like, we show up and we say what we're thinking, we kind of have our concerns, and nobody really listens to us. It's not just been with planning. It's been with issues over the years with the animal shelter. It's been recently some issues with trying to get kind of responsiveness from EMS or something like that. So it's just been kind of hearing people that there's a lot of people that just don't feel like they're heard, or they've got any access at all. This is probably hurt me to some degree with some people, but I'm willing to sit down and talk to anybody and listen to anybody. And sometimes we may be pretty far apart on a lot of issues, but I will sit down and talk to you. And so if there's a picture of me sitting down and talking to somebody, it can get turned into, he must think exactly like they do. And that's just not true. I mean, I'm not going to make everybody happy all the time. I'm not going to agree with everybody all the time, but I want everybody to feel like they've got somebody that they can call and talk to.
Mayor Frank, he touched on some things, but let you address some of that. First of all, access. Do you feel like that you're accessible to people?
I do, and I'm also very accessible to commissioners. So if there are issues that their constituents have, I'm willing to work with them. I will say that in my tenure, I don't know that Josh has kind of ever come to my office and just said, hey, let's sit down and talk about some of these issues that are a concern. I know sometimes he's texted me, and when he's texted something, I've addressed it. I mean, if that's, for instance, we had an issue for quite a while where there was flyaway debris at the Glen Alpine Convenience Center, and we had to just really work that with the Waste Connection folks, work with the attendants, put in place some safeguards there, amp that up, and that was working with Josh. But some of the things like right now that I'm hearing about Planning Commission, I don't know that there's been any conversation there. Our planning office, when I ran for office, that was one of the number one complaints I heard was about planning. The main thing is how the staff treated people, and there were some I guess issues in that particular regard. I know when I came into office, just being in the small business world and retail sector, my philosophy is, we may not be able to tell them yes, but we can do it with kindness. So we don't make the rules,
Yeah.
The mayor, doesn't matter who the mayor is, if it's Terry, if it were Josh, if it was Rex or Dave Bowling, commission actually approves the zoning resolution. And we have to work that. And sometimes it does not make people happy. We try to, codes is a particular area where, a lot of folks get mad when you show up and there's been a complaint. We're a complaint-based system. We try our best to work with people before, give them an opportunity to get things cleaned up before it goes the legal route. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of that, yes, I do appoint members to the Planning Commission. The BZA is completely 100% a commission-appointed process. So that's the separation of powers that's in Tennessee Code annotated.
BZA meaning the
Board of Zoning Appeals. So if there are questions, so this is one of the things I've heard, Commissioner Anderson mention on the campaign trail. The mayor does not interview applicants for BZA. I don't make a choice of who sits on the BZA. I don't have any appointment authority for the BZA. That's 100% commission appointed. The applications go through them. And that's a separation of powers because you don't want, something happening on Planning Commission and those are the mayor's appointments, and then interpretation decisions are made at the BZA level. And the separation of powers is that's completely commission. And commission controls rezoning, commission controls amendments. Yes, your Planning Commission can make recommendations, but they've been voted down many times. They're not always approved. And so there's that separation of powers that works, not just in Anderson County, but in every county across the state of Tennessee.
What do you hope to accomplish that you've not already been able to accomplish in this run this time?
I have so many things on the to-do list. I do want to finish some of the projects that we've had that are just so long because of environmental, some of the park projects. One of the areas where I would like to see the county us do a little bit more would be in the capital realm, because if you look at some of the issues where counties get in trouble and you're paying, you're borrowing, you're paying interest, which dilutes tax dollars. Just building up, those funds, and because you're going to need to replace a roof sometime.
Sure.
You're going to have to build a new school sometime. And right now we're building a school without having to come up with new revenue. I mean, that's, I think, in the history of Anderson County, it's a great day. I mean, yes, we borrowed, but the capacity is already there. I ran for office the first time because of the big tax increase associated with the jail and the Clinch River School. And it's not anti-jail and it's not Clinch River. It's a lack of planning that ends up costing taxpayers a tax increase because of a lack of planning.
And this time we were doing it without that.
Correct. Yes. And, some of the other things that I really want to work on are, I just feel like there's so much more to be done with mental health, addiction. Many years ago, they shut down the mental health facility in Knoxville. And a lot of mayors, we've joined together. We've put this part of a legislative package. We're lobbying the legislature. We really need something.
Law enforcement agrees with that, too.
Yes. I mean, we've got to have a place. And then, one of the other things I would like to see us do is come together, not just Anderson County, but with other counties. There are other states like Florida and Kentucky that have very strict processes, okay? You don't want to put somebody in rehab. You got to be careful about that. But these states have that ability. So, I mean, when you're trapped in addiction, you're not using your frontal lobe. Families are hurting. And this is one of the number one, crises that comes to my office. People come in, sit on the couch, they're crying, their families that love their children. And there's nothing they can do. You can't force someone to take a time out and go 30 days. And these states, in Florida, it's like the Baker Law. You can give the individual a choice. Do you want to go to jail or do you want to 30 days at this particular facility? And you give people, these families hope and the ability to get well. And the same thing in Kentucky. And they have Dr. Alvarado, who was the commissioner of health for the state of Tennessee, and he's since left. He was still, even when he was commissioner for Tennessee, he was still serving on a panel in Kentucky. And when people are in a crisis, he makes that judgment call, and then they put somebody in treatment. And that's not jail, but here's an opportunity for help. And it provides that person an opportunity at getting their life back. And it also helps the family. And I do think as a state, we've just not done all that we should do there. And so I would like to see us, and those are just two. I don't want to hog all the airtime, and Josh needs to talk too. But
what about what things do you hope to accomplish, Josh, if you're elected?
Well, I think trying to get a planning commission that is a little more receptive to neighborhood needs, community needs. I think that's going to be important as we're going to continue to grow, and I can't stop that. Nobody's going to stop that, but we've got to manage it responsibly. Focusing and defending public education is going to be important. As these industries are building and coming in, they need all the qualified employees they can get. And I think focusing on some career and technical education, partnering with industry partners and that sort of thing to make sure that our graduates have a chance at those jobs that are going to be right here in their hometown. I think that's going to be important. I don't like the direction the state has been going with education, with the vouchers and that sort of thing. I think eventually it's going to cost the public schools money, and I think eventually we're going to have to make up the difference at the local level. So that's one of the things that concerns me about that. So
You're talking about planning and paying more attention to the community needs. specifically, do you have an issue that you feel like has been overlooked?
There's been a couple over the last few years. The development at Mountain Road between David Jones Industrial Park and Andersonville Elementary School, I think there were some people brought up some valid points about this is a narrow road, the county road. It's narrow, it's windy. There's wet weather springs on the property. There's going to be a lot of storm runoff. The school, it's what's the capacity left for Andersonville Elementary. The infrastructure, you look at the sewer and water. The elementary school had been closed 5 or 6 days that school year because of water main breaks and sewer main breaks and that sort of thing. So we're not really able to handle what we've got now. How are we going to put 6 houses per acre on a tract of land here, and how are we going to absorb that? Are we going to get enough revenue off of that to offset having to add on to the school, having to widen Mountain Road, having to hire an additional patrol or maybe an additional ambulance crew just to cover that service this area? So I think those are some things that kind of worry me. Now I think there's some places in the county that we could handle developments that dense. I just don't necessarily think an agricultural zone in Mountain Road is the right place for it. Commission voted it down, and it got circumvented, so it's going to happen anyway. Other than that, there's been some issues. I think with campgrounds, I think we've got to be really careful about where we're approving those. We had a recommendation from Planning Commission to put one on Buffalo Road. Commission, the neighborhood showed up. Commission did not change the zoning. They voted it down, but it's one of those situations where it's one ag zone allows it, the other ag zone does not. So we stopped it there, but then Planning Commission comes back with a recommendation or says, hey, we want to merge the ag zones, which is going to basically retroactively okay the campground for everybody. It's going to change a lot of people's zoning that don't realize their zoning's even being changed if you merge that. So that kind of, if commissioners, if my people come and say, hey, I want you to vote no, and I vote no, but then it gets, kind of bureaucratically overturned by a commission that's not elected, how does that?
Do you think as a mayor, you or current mayor has the power to overturn that, or is that not a group decision?
It's a group decision, but I think it can be affected over who you appoint to some of those boards, or just kind of advocating one way or the other.
I've been fooling with this locally more than either of you guys, and I want to go back to John Alley. And I remember on this program on the phone having a conversation with Mr. Alley, Johnny's dad, over the development of the Fox property. Mm-hmm. And he was adamant that should not happen. He felt like, that should continue to be the agricultural property that it was. Of course, the Fox family wanted to do it, and I was for it. I felt like it was, the city had strip annexed. You remember, yeah. It was that was during Mr. Queener's tenure, Steve Queener, but. And so there was a little controversy, but at the end of the day, I feel like that was done okay. And there was a lot of consternation. A lot of people were upset about that. You go back to the Rogers group, you remember there was a big, a lot of folks were upset about that too. But stepping back and looking at it, I think that y'all with the county and even the city of Clinton kind of handled that. Turned out okay is what I'm getting to, even though it felt like at the time there was some folks that were opposed to it. So once things like that happen, do you feel like you can come together no matter what and do what's best for the county? Because that again, there were a lot of people there that didn't like it, but it came through, and then I feel like commission and city council all stepped up and made sure that it was an appropriate development that was serving everybody. So,
there's still a lot of counties in the state of Tennessee that don't have any zoning.
Really?
And so
that's interesting.
I don't think there's any one cookie cutter answer. And so, for instance, the example that was just mentioned on Buffalo Road, it worked out. Some folks lost, some folks won. In this particular case, the Planning Commission, and I'm not really sure of the example he's speaking of. I don't know the details on it, but The Planning Commission has to look at, does it meet all of these requirements? Okay. You get into denying someone something that's outside of our governance documents, that's when the county gets sued. So they're just, this has been explained. I know Commissioner Isabel, when he served on Planning Commission for quite a while, he would often explain this at commission. We're not saying we think it's going to be the greatest project. It's not an endorsement committee for the idea. It's, does it check all of these boxes in line with our governance documents? And you have to have,
If it does, is it mandatory you approve it if it meets if you check off all the boxes?
Well, I think the commission can express some concerns and say, we're identifying some concerns on your site plan. How are you going to address? I mean, that's why you're required to put all of that information in front of them. They have pre-reviews. Some things that there's just no question on go onto a consent agenda, and just like full commission, it can be pulled off of consent agenda. But ultimately, again, the commission makes the decision, and that's where the community can show up. The community can speak out, and they've done that. They filled up that room before, and rezonings have been voted down. Some have been approved. I remember a particularly contentious one was, on Highway 61, you've got, the Kyle Farm, you've got a lot of rural area there to the right. And I think it was the Mullins family wanted to sell the property for $1 market. And there were folks in the community that wanted that. They wanted to be able to buy a gallon of milk and some other things. And there were people that said, no, we want to maintain, strictly the rural nature of this bend. And that was a tight vote. It was, but the community had the opportunity to come. We're required to have that. Okay. So I think it's because they are contentious issues, and the balance is also private property rights versus, Ron, I know I can remember talking to you about TVA and your access to the water. It's this balance. You're balancing, and I don't think, it's so easy just to, take any one issue and say, I know, for instance, on the Mountain Road, you had a family there. They've paid taxes on this property all of those years. You could be set for life and take care of your medical bills as the lady aged. Should she be stopped? Because these are not easy answers. Sure. You can see both sides of the equation, and I think we do have to be thoughtful about it. And I do think it's a time too that we need to entertain other ideas. That, like I mentioned at the Chamber Forum this week, there are other states like Connecticut that have cluster zoning or cluster housing, and you may have 5 rural parcels that all are allowed to build a home, but they must build with super setbacks so that they're all clustered towards the end of the property, and that leaves the rural nature all around. There are other ideas that we could look at as we're experiencing growth.
Okay. All right, let's get into all the fun stuff, which you guys, I'm sure, have answered all these questions over and over and over. But I'm going to start with this one because this one's relatively new. You posted, Mayor Frank, and this was in response to Congressman Burchett's endorsement. Yes. And you used words like meltdown and exorcism to describe how folks might view Tim endorsing you. Question is, can you explain that public messaging? This comes from Aaron Russell. Can you explain your public messaging and how that reflects the kind of leadership you bring or represents everyone in this city, using words like meltdown or exorcism?
Well, there has been a lot of vitriol, and what I would just say is flat out hate online, and Congressman Burchett pushes back against that a lot himself. And so I'm just saying, well, I guess this is going to basically pour gasoline on that fire by having an endorsement from Congressman Burchett.
Sure.
And really, it's been, it's not really been a discussion of, even questions or an opportunity. I can think, and I think I mentioned this even on your show before, Ron, there's been a couple of individuals that came to see me about the animal shelter as an example. And then when they left my office, just within a short period of time, they're writing all of commission about all of these concerns. And one of the ladies, I said, I would have been happy to discuss any of your concerns if you would have raised them in our meeting. The meeting was about the shelter. What are you going to do? I gave them a map, all of these things. And that particular lady responded, well, I'm sorry you're mad. Well, it's not that I'm mad. It's that I have to challenge the sincerity of our meeting. Was it just checking a box? Because you're out there blasting me. And that's really what we're experiencing right now. And so I see the Democrat Party, they take issue with me. They throw stones over at me, but they're not, at Mr. Anderson. And so I just kind of calling it what it is. It's the liberals that are not happy with my candidacy. And I see the evidence of that online. So I just called it out.
Josh, you've answered this before, but I'm going to ask it. This comes from a gentleman by the name of Patrick Card. It says, as the Anderson County Library Board Chairman, why did you, it says push, I'm not going to say push, but why did you allow the materials that were in question, and we've all seen them and talked about them. We know the books that we're talking about. Why did you side on the side of keeping those in the library, or do you believe that they should be public access, taxpayer dollar funded in our libraries?
I did not feel like I was someone who wanted to start drawing a line of like what's allowed and what's not allowed. Now, did I like them? No. And there was a motion, and I think it's been out on Facebook about a motion to get rid of any books of a sexual nature, anything explicit, real open-ended motion. So when you pass stuff like that that's so vague, are you getting rid of a Renaissance book with the Statue of David in it? Or are you getting, everybody kind of knows there's 2 or 3 books that caused a lot of concern. I actually handed the gavel over and made the motion to put those behind the counter. And I felt like at the time, that was 3 years ago, that made the majority of people were okay with, they're like, yeah, I don't necessarily think we should get rid of them, but yeah, just put them up out of sight, where you've got to be 18 to sign for it or an adult accompanying you. I felt like we had a compromise in place that worked really well. Now, I know it's came back up again as election times came back up about the books. There's new information from the Secretary of State with new rules. And I've been off the board for about a year now, so I'm confident that the board will make some decisions. But like when I was on it, you can't solve all the world's problems in a 90-minute board meeting. You've got your law director. We went through 2 law directors. Jay passed away during the middle of that, but we went through every policy. We tightened up our policies. We tightened up how we get new material in. It gets looked at by the board. So I felt like we were protecting children by doing what we did.
Did the libraries do it? The thing that we kept getting was you guys were making recommendations, or as the board saying this is what we do, but some of the libraries just were not complying or were slow to comply. And
when I was on the board, the libraries were doing it. They were putting the books that were in question that had been challenged. Now, if people bring up other books, I don't go through the shelves and just say I don't like this one, I don't like this one, I don't like this one. We've got a very thorough process for if you want to reconsider a book, if you want to challenge a book. Some of the books that have came up recently had never gone through that. There's different books I see on Facebook posts that just pop up every time something new. But like for quite a while after we put 2 or 3 books behind the counter, everything seemed to be okay for a long time. It seemed like a lot of people were happy. So
the current library board has made a ruling or whatever that there would be two sections. There'd be an adult section, and then there'd be not an adult section, and that anything that was controversial like that would go into the adult section. That means if you're under 18, you're not supposed to go there. Do you agree with that, Mayor Frank?
That there should be two sections?
Yeah, they've because there was like a young teen and a this teen and a that teen and a toddlers, so they've said, no, it's adult or not adult. If you're, 18 or older to see this, 18 and younger to see this.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. But I also, let's be clear. Those motions that were voted on, they were voted on twice. They weren't about statues of David. They weren't National Geographic with women nursing children, in other countries. They were about explicit sexual acts, and they were in the context of specific books. And you've put those images on your website, which makes it flagged on my government computer.
It flagged me.
Yeah. And, I've heard the argument that, well, they can get it on their phone. They can get it. Yeah, it is easily accessible. And the state of Tennessee has worked on cracking down on that with verifying, that you are 18, you are of age to be able to see some of these materials. But this is a taxpayer-funded facility. And, there are millions and millions of books out there. And I have to question why you would want to use taxpayer money for those sexually explicit books. Again, this is much like the Planning Commission. There is a board, and it matters who governs on those boards. And the votes weren't there to be able to remove those books. But that's, as each of the cities puts their folks on and the county does, all of this coming to light has brought forward, maybe we need to pay attention to who's on the board instead of just who's signing up to serve on the board. So I think, yes, our society is structured around protecting children. It's also structured around understanding the developing mind of a child. And the community at large is very accustomed to a ratings system for movies. We don't let children go see a Quentin Tarantino movie when they're 7 years old. And so these are just common sense protections that people understand.
Do you agree with the current board's assertion there are two sections, adult and non-adult?
I think legally, yeah, that's how the state recognizes people. You're a child, you're an adult. And so I think, yes, I think that makes the most legal sense. Logistically, I don't know what they're going to do. Are you going to start kind of petitioning, kind of walling off an area? Like, how do you put that into practice?
Okay.
That's up to Captain Val and the library board. I'm not on it. But logistically, I don't know how you're going to make that. It's not something you're going to fix overnight as far as like segregating the children or keeping them from getting into the adult section, because every library is designed differently. The cities own the library buildings, so you're going to have, if you're going to build walls and that sort of thing, you're going to have to go through some permission processes. But yeah, I mean, as far as and I think from what I understand in the cataloging system, they already have split it, child versus adult. So it just gets down to where are you gonna start blocking kids from going into the.
Let me ask you this, both of you, right or wrong. Let's. Do you believe those books and those instructions are necessary to have in a library?
No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. There's a million books out there. Why? And I've heard, some of the advocates at our commission level during public comment period saying, oh, we need to educate the children or give them access to education in this area. I disagree. I think that's more of a parental, even at school, like with my kids, I had to sign a form. They were going to have education. The birds and the bees discussion, and the parent signed a form, and I think that's appropriate.
What about you, Josh?
We restricted the books, and the books that we restricted were in the adult section already. So I think putting the restriction in place was something that worked for a lot of people, and it seemed like the issue was resolved for a while. So.
I want to read something, and I want to read something. I'm not going to show these pictures and all this stuff again. But I do want to read something that was in here. Where is it? Well, I said I was going to. Oh, here we go. It says, you can find out, this is a book for kids. You can find out a lot about your fantasies and your kinks on the internet. There are tons of people that you can find and communicate with who share your fantasies and interests of all kinds. There's an online world that is a chock block full of pornography professionals and amateurs alike sharing their sexy adventures online. When consumed right, porn can help you actually discover new aspects of your own sexuality and can help you safely explore your own kinks and fantasies. But depending on your age and where you go to find it, porn can also be unethical or illegal to watch. So do your research. Look up interviews with your favorite porn stars and porn performers. Go to their sites that they recommend and make sure you pay for your porn. Do you think that has a place? Again, I'm not even going with the pictures or education, just that. And I don't know, do you believe that there's educational value in what I just read to you?
There apparently was, because there was an investigation by the sheriff's office and it met that standard. But it was in the adult section when I was made aware of it. And we as a board, when I was on the board, put it behind the counter and restricted it completely. So there was no issue of anybody. You didn't have to worry about a kid going into the adult section and getting a hold of it. Yeah. So if I were a librarian and it was my job to order books, that's not a book I'm going to get.
Okay.
My books are going to be about Andrew Jackson or Civil War or something like that. So,
Frank, I think you've already said no in general, but without getting into the pictures and being salacious, just that an instruction or a call to, I don't care, even adults, pornography ruins lives just like alcohol or just like drugs. And a call to go and, pique a curiosity about it, to me, just seems like asking for trouble.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And one of the ironies, back in the day, I used to have a blog. This was back when I ran the restaurant, and it was called Frankly Speaking. And most of the stuff I did on that blog was related to state government. So I tracked a lot of state government, had some fun, did some commentary. Back in the day, my site was blocked in the Clinton Library as a hate site.
I remember that.
And so, the idea that, we're going to get into a discussion of what's legal and what's not. This is a public library. And no, I don't think that material has any place instructing a child in those areas.
Let's talk about animals.
Yes.
I'm going to start with the goat gate. Goats.
Yes.
I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that our animal control, and I don't know if we're in legal battles or not, but I think we made a mistake. It seems like we did. Mm-hmm. What is your perspective on the way that was handled? I'm going to let me summarize, and then you correct me if I'm wrong. Summarize is there was a complaint called. Somebody said there was an animal being mistreated. Animal control went out there. They concurred and loosed the animal or took the animal. Mm-hmm. Hindsight 2020, UT Ag Center, and some other folks said you're not supposed to do that. How do we respond to that? How did you respond to that? And do we need people that know the rules in our animal control?
So the individual, and I was on the show and talked about this before, Ron, that individual is represented by counsel. So there is, I can't just be talking about every detail on this. I mean, I have to be kind of limited, but I did ask the law director to do an investigation and a review. And I will say that we have amped up training for the officers. They just returned and got certificates for some agricultural training. I've reached out to the law director about mediating and correcting any wrongs with those folks. So I guess without getting into too much that might compromise any kind of legal negotiations, I will say that.
Do you want to add anything to it?
I just think, and I think we kind of already are, but we need to stress the fact we're a dog and cat shelter, as long as we as a county are going to have a shelter. And there, years ago, 15, 20 years ago, there was some issues with horses just all over the state. It was I don't know. The
wild horses that were around?
No, it was just, I don't know if it was something maybe with the housing market too, but there was just, horse rescues were inundated. You would just be driving around, you'd see some really pitiful looking horses. True. And stuff. And it's one of those things that even if the animal's kind of actively dying, if it's livestock, ag crimes is totally in charge. And so we've got to really do a good job about kind of partnering with ag crimes, with extension, and saying, if it's livestock, you need to go this way. If it's dog and cat, you can come to us. Because as horrible as it might look, if we don't act, if we don't go confiscate livestock, it's going to look worse if we bring in an animal that we don't really know how to care for and it dies while we've got it or something like that. So I think we should just kind of stay in our lane on dogs and cats.
Speaking of dogs and cats, and we've got numerous groups, 2 or 3 different groups that are all out there working. And then we've got the government, the county, that's also. Yeah. And for years, there's been a call for animal shelter, humane animal shelter. You've put forth a plan, or I say you. You correct me both of you correct me if I say something wrong. Jump in and correct me because I've been wrong before. But we have plans to build a new shelter.
Yes.
And that's getting ready to take off and start. When will we begin construction on that? Do you know?
I don't know the exact date of that. I have one of those Gantt charts, and I just can't remember. I know the expectation is to be in the dry by October and completion at the end of February 2027.
With that said,
yes, sir.
We've got the sheriff asking us for funds right now that we don't seem to have. We have 79 counties in this state that charge less taxes than we do. Every single county touching Anderson County charges less taxes than we do. Most have the same services that we do. How are you going to pay for a staff to run a $6.5 million animal shelter when we can't pay the sheriff's deputies?
Well, Ron, I mean, I do not foresee need to just plus up a bunch of staff. I mean, one of the big obstacles right now to running the shelter as it is everybody is all over because we have this very subpar facility. There's no space in there for filing cabinets. There's no space for the employees to do their training on the computer. We have to store materials in Oak Ridge at the DARC building. We've got PetSmart that we're operating over there because we're out on Blockhouse Valley in the middle of a recycling center, and it's not really conducive to walk in, browse and look at adopting cats. And so the employees are spread out. There's also not size in the facility to really take advantage of the people that want to volunteer.
So short answer is you consolidate, where instead of being at PetSmart and being here and being there, you're going to consolidate?
Yes.
So you think you can do it under the current budget of...
Well, I think there's going to be a little plus up in terms of we've got to pay insurance on the facility. So the budget director will pull that out of each code. Everybody's got to pay their own freight on insurance. And then your utilities, the opportunities that will exist there in terms of volunteerism is going to grow, because right now there's just not, I mean, you want to come volunteer, you're stepping on top of each other. Ever since we've opened the facility, we've had these students from BARC at Clinton High School who've been down there on a Saturday, and you start getting a number of people in there, you're all stepping on top of each other. It's just not really conducive. I've visited when we were looking at, workflow, how do we want to design this? We visited other shelters, Blount County, Putnam County, Hamilton County. One of the big challenges there is just the actual workflow with the facility. So what we tried to do is design something that you have the front of the house is the public side where everybody can be, public can come in, community rooms, kind of a viewing station that's much like PetSmart. The front of the house, adoption area, and then back of the house, which is your kennels, where the cleaning and the laundry and all of that takes place. So, we designed it to where it could be a shared space. The other thing is, I love the Blount County model where there is a partnership with the nonprofits. So what they do is they say, they've got one group, for instance, that raises money every year. And that group says, we want to see safer testing. We want to see you have a veterinarian on staff. They raise the funds. Then there is a contract that is entered into between Blount County government and the nonprofit. It's agreed upon by both the county commission, the mayor's office, and the nonprofit. And contractually, the government says, we'll accept these funds and we'll do these things that you want to see. And in return, you're welcome to come in and audit us. You can look at the books. You can verify that we've expended the money as as we agreed to. And I think that type of partnership protects
public-private partnership,
protects the taxpayer, has clear guidelines, makes sure everybody's, living up to, all of the federal requirements, all the policies and procedures, and it's a true partnership, and the nonprofit gets what they want to see from a community standpoint, and government says, we're going to agree to do that according to your standards.
You have anything to weigh in on that?
I've kind of been pushing for some type of partnership or even looking at what Campbell County does with a nonprofit that runs it, because that's the only way to... You can't guarantee what the budget's going to do or what you're going to need down the road. So the way to get it off the taxpayers' backs is to have a nonprofit with motivated volunteers and a really strong fundraising arm to come up with the money a way other than your property tax levy. So that's where I think we need to go with that.
Well, Campbell County does allocate those funds so they enter into a contract with that nonprofit. So
does the nonprofit produce the revenue, give it to the county, and the county says, we'll spend it as you want? Or does the county allocate tax funds and then the nonprofit say, you've allocated this money, spend it on this, and this?
I'm not sure about the agreement in Campbell County. I just know that back in the day, I can remember watching some of the you see online live videos that come across your feed, and I saw it was a big, point of debate in Campbell County where they were asking for additional funds. So the county gives the nonprofit funds to operate the shelter. I don't know if they have a fundraising arm, if they're required to pass that through Campbell County government, if they're just allowed to spend that on their own as just a nonprofit arm. So I don't know what those governmental requirements are.
But inside that shelter, whether the new one or what have you, you are currently working to recertify or to re-educate or to more educate the people that are currently
on the livestock?
On all of it.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes,
because
sir.
You remember we had had questions. I can't remember how long ago it was, but euthanizing cats. People were saying we were just doing it willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Seemed like there were complaints about that. I don't know if that's procedurally the way things are supposed to happen or not. But, I mean, it just seems like we've had a lot of conversation about animals in this county.
We have, and I do think, I mean, one of the big challenges, Ron, is just a lack of space. I mean, one of the number one complaints I get is, someone wants us to, come get these animals immediately. And our staff basically we live in a state of capacity. Mm-hmm. And so they've got folks on a waiting list, or they're pushing folks, well, can you hold on to that animal for a little while longer? And it's because there's no extra capacity. There's no room to move. The pressure is enormous not to euthanize, and they don't want to. I mean, they love animals. They don't want to euthanize. And so I don't know, there has been much success that has not been appropriately celebrated about euthanasia for space. We're not having to do that. And there may be some occasions, I don't have the stats right in front of me, but the misnomer out there is that there are no-kill shelters that never euthanize. The generally accepted principle is that no-kill means you euthanize 10% or less, because every single shelter has animals that come in that may have a severe aggression problem that you cannot adopt out into the community. Mm-hmm. Or there may be some, disease issue that requires an immediate euthanasia, and they're all doing it. And the misnomer is that, our shelter's gotten a lot of bad rap that they're a kill shelter. Well, yes, they do perform humane euthanasia, but in 2024, they achieved a no-kill status. It was 10% or less. But that's not been the focus of discussion.
Josh, in social media and elsewhere, folks have pointed to some of your donors, Norris Individual Group, or Norris Tennessee Indivisible.
Well, they don't make donations as a group.
Members, the members of it, and it's a pretty liberal organization, Democratic organization.
Well, it's supposed to be nonpartisan, and there's pictures of me at meetings, but when I first ran in 2018, people would come up to me in Norris and say, we're the redheaded stepchild of the county. And that's been the theme everywhere I've gone in the county. And they said, no, nobody comes to see us, to talk to us. They don't know what's going on from the county. So I made it a point when I got elected. I went to everything. I showed up to everything. Indivisible hosts a lot of public meetings, and they have them open to the public, and I've been there. And so, and they've asked me to come speak on the upcoming county budget. They've asked me to come speak about, what's going on with, education things, and I've tried my best to go talk to them when they've asked me. We've definitely not agreed they've not agreed with all my votes all the time, but as far as Mr. Bishop and Miss Livingston, I've known them my entire life, and she's actually supported a lot of Republican candidates from Randy McNally on. So it's kind of one of those things. We live in a small town, and I know a lot of people, that have all kinds of viewpoints, and I'm honored to have their support. They're friends and neighbors to me before they get accused of being a Democrat or a liberal or whatever. But
at the Anderson County meeting of the Anderson County Republican Party, you guys got to get up and say a few words here recently. And one of the things that you said, you were more of a libertarian. Mm-hmm. What about being a Republican do you disagree with that makes you want to be a libertarian instead of a...
Well, the libertarian is within the tent of the Republican Party, and it's something that Glenn Jacobs has even mentioned when he was first campaigning, that he kind of identified that way. Ronald Reagan's kind of said it's kind of central to the Republican Party. And it's not even necessarily that it's something that that there's like specific issues that I don't like. or something. It's one of those things that my emphasis is on personal freedom and personal liberty, obviously, of adults. But that's kind of where I think.
What personal freedom, and again,
I mean, whether it's the right to bear arms, I feel like there's a lot of, and it's from all sides, but there's a lot of kind of almost nanny state type things that go on in the country. You know, whether it's I see people who ask, where can I buy raw milk? You know, on a Facebook post, and they'll get jumped on about that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. You know, like if they're buying it and they know what it is, it's like, who cares? You know, why are we trying to micromanage what people do? You know, what people choose to do, and so that's just kind of where I've always felt like I align more with that wing of the party.
Okay. I'm going to get it.
Except when it comes to your personal property.
Well, yeah. when it starts to infringe on the neighbors, and that's where they've pointed out, if you pave something up here, the rain comes down, it runs down on you, then it's affecting your property, and that's the balance we've got to work out.
And that's why we have planning and BZA. That responsibility falls to those guys. And how many appointments can the mayor make to planning commission, or do you? What is BZA planning commission? How many?
BZA, no. BZA is 5. There are 5 members.
And that's commission appoints those.
Those are commission appointed.
And then on planning commission,
7.
And how many does the mayor get to appoint?
All of those. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back through minutes and see. I don't recall a nominating committee meeting. Of course, we've kind of merged nominating now, but I don't recall the last time somebody came through nominating to get on the BZA. So. I'm gonna have to.
How does that work?
They go straight to commission again.
Does commission put a call for them?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a call for seats or whatever openings, and then people apply to it? Is that
I would guess so, because that doesn't come through my office.
Okay.
So in fact, they have an alternate. I attended a BZA meeting the other day for our EMS training facility, and they only had 3 members present. And I did ask a question about the alternate because I think the BZA operates too as an administrative board. So you'll know, like if you attend one of the meetings, Jerry White will swear people in because it's you're making decisions and people are testifying to the truthfulness of their statements. So there's even an alternate, and I can't remember the name of the particular alternate, but I did ask, is that the purpose of the alternate? Like if you don't have a quorum, can that alternate step in for where someone isn't? So they have 5 members, but they do have an alternate, and that does go through commission.
I mentioned earlier that every single county that touches Anderson County has a lesser tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson County, and probably part of Roane County, where the plants are probably the largest employer of those counties, maybe with the exception of Knox County. So we provide a lot of jobs.
We do.
Our industrial provides a lot of jobs for folks. Yet our property tax is higher than all of them. And someone said to me here recently, well, it's population, maybe they've got more people. And that's true. I think our budget here in Anderson County, I was looking at it, and I've got 2 different numbers. I've got a $153 million budget, and I've got a $214 million budget. Do either of you know which one of those 2 budgets is closer to our annual budget?
It's $153 million.
The other one maybe is City of Oak Ridge. I'm not
with the city included. Okay.
The 214, I think that might be city.
That said, I'm looking around, and I look at Campbell County. I've got a $108 million budget. Scott County, a $55 million budget. Morgan County, $80 million budget. Union County, $65 million budget. Roane County, $130 million budget. Then you get over to Knox County with a $1.3 billion budget. How can these guys function on a lower property tax rate, and Anderson County can't?
Knox County's got most of those counties also have the wheel tax, and some of the counties have a higher sales tax base that they can use.
You think Campbell County's got more retail than Anderson?
I don't think Campbell does, but
Scott?
Campbell, they may have. I think they've got the wheel tax though.
Does Scott have? Okay.
I think we're the only one around here that doesn't.
Which is a good thing.
I agree.
Which is a good thing. So your assertion is they're getting taxes. They're just getting it somewhere other than property tax.
They're getting it from something. It's from somewhere else. Yeah.
Mayor Frank?
Well, I think Anderson County. One particular challenge for Anderson County is we do have the government complex. So you have Department of Energy, Y12, ORNL, and I think in terms of, the majority of your operation, whether it is ORNL or Y12, is going to be your employees. It's salaries. And if you're going to have to make something up, it's going to have to be, letting people go. For instance, when the federal government years ago said we got to cut this much out of the Y12 budget, a lot of that's going to be people. You need them to retire early. They do buyouts, those kind of things. That has been a bit of an inflationary factor for the county because the federal government pays much better wages than, local government or private sector. And so that's an issue, but that's also an issue for our ring counties as well, around Y12. I think that's been a bit of an issue, but I do think that historically, if you look at the county, one of the big issues has been a lack of capital planning. And I can remember coming into office and even wanting to do just a fraction of a penny. And I was just celebrating this big win on budget committee because we got a fraction of a penny for capital goods. You look at when we borrowed, and I'll explain this, Ron, when we borrowed in 2011 to do the jail and the Clinch River School, the county had no capital funds, and they borrowed extra money to be able to buy things like computers, cruisers for the police department, other vehicles that were needed. We're still paying, 30-year note for basic capital needs, not even major assets. And you've heard some of the commissioners over the years object to that. We shouldn't be buying these items on a 30-year note. And the only way you can stop doing that is to get in a cycle of planning and, socking away funds for those needs. And I think if you look at borrowing over the history of Anderson County, and I've mentioned this and I know people's eyes glaze over, when you talk about it. In 2011, Anderson County was still borrowing tax anticipation notes to start each fiscal year. And for the folks in the listening audience, what that means is, we don't get the cash until taxpayers come in and start paying their bills. And that's in the fall. Now, we're getting some sales tax. We're getting some other revenues that come in on a standard basis, the clerk's fees and those kind of things. But your big pot of money is when people come in to pay their property tax. So when the government has no money in the bank, when they've got no money stored away to start each fiscal year and make payroll, they were actually having to borrow money, Ron. And so then you're paying interest. Mm-hmm. And then you want to give people raises or you want to buy stuff. The bankers loved us.
Sure.
The people who we were paying interest to love us. But we had to get out of that cycle. And I think that has been one of the largest contributing factors to a high property tax rate, because without backup funds, anytime you go to buy something big, you're having to borrow or you're having to increase people's taxes in order to pay for it. And that's why you got that crisis event in 2011. There was no money. The courts were saying you've got to expand your jail. You got to do this. And the only solution was to tax people more. Now, are there other solutions? Yeah, we're going to cut this department. We're going to do away with this. And those should be on the chopping block too, but it seems like for some reason the path of least resistance is often to tax people more, and I don't agree with that.
Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, we do need better capital planning, and I think we've tried in some ways to do that. I know the 10-cent tax increase in 2019 sort of addressed that with the schools. With half of that was for their capital outlay fund, which has allowed them to build Claxton with no tax increase. But now we're kind of starting to backslide. We had that increase for the sheriff and the schools. That was what that funded. So there's been pushback on allowing the sheriff to use his rollover funds from that for his retention bonuses. We approved that, and there's been some talk on budget about maybe taking that schools 177 capital fund, taking those pennies and kind of doing something else with that. So to me, we voted on it specifically for those things. So if we're not going to use it for those things, we need to repeal it. Like, tell Scott I see his 2 cents and I raise him 10 cents. Because if we're not going to spend it on what we said we were going to spend it on, we should just do away with it.
Well, that's where I'm going next. And you guys probably were prepared for this. The largest expense that we have is schools. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, in an effort to plan ahead in 2011, Myron Iwanski and the boys that were in power at that point ran this industrial property tax down our throat. We're going to charge you 2 cents on the tax rate now for 15 years so that we can buy industrial property. But we didn't buy industrial property. So you guys are sitting here saying we need to set aside money to do these things so we don't have to borrow it. But yet, when the taxpayers agreed with that and they trusted that would happen, County Commission did not do that. In fact, you gave it to the schools for Chromebooks after you give them about $84 million a year of our tax money. Why would any, and you, neither one of you probably voted on this. Obviously, the mayor didn't, and you weren't a commissioner. But we're sitting here saying this is what we need to do, and Commission just screwed the county. They just point. I know, and I love Jerry Shattuck. He asked me not to use the word lie, but I don't know how else to say it. We were misled into believing that we put this fund away for industrial property. We haven't bought any industrial property, and I've talked to industrial titans in this state that say Anderson County is out of industrial property. Mm-hmm. And that's just not from Anderson Countyans. That's from people from the Carolinas and other places that know our importance with I-40 and I-75. Yeah. So telling us we need to set aside to plan and all this, and yet in times that we've done that before, it's been spent on other stuff. I really do believe that if we've done that, that needs to be given back. That doesn't need to be rolled in as part of our budget. And I just want to know, I'll start with you, Josh. If you're elected, would you lobby the commission to look at taking that tax off? Because we're not buying industrial property. I know it's only a half cent now. We've moved it without anybody making a vote, without any commission making a vote outside of maybe commissioners did vote to move it, but the general public was told it was to buy property and it didn't buy any property. Can we give it back?
We need to, at the very least, it needs to have an industrial use. I don't think there's any land to buy.
Well, now you know what? That's BS, because I've been told, we paved the roads. That's so we could drive industrial cars on it. Well, okay, yeah. And Chromebooks, so kids could grow up and get a job in industry. That's not what it's for. It's not for industrial use. It's for industrial land. And if you're not buying green land, I think we need it back. I think all of it. I think 15 years of it. So whatever that comes to on the tax rate. Mayor Frank?
Well, Ron, every year for transparency, it is a requirement of the law that county commission publish the proposed budget, and it goes into the Courier. I think it goes into the Oak Ridge too. I'd have to check with that. I know it did in the past. But those 2 pennies were reallocated. So you do have a penny and a half going to capital needs, and the half penny still going to industrial. I do know some of those funds have gone absolutely for industrial purposes. So, for instance, there is property in David Jones Industrial Park that we got, and I hate to say the numbers because I may be misremembering them, but we got a lot of money from the state of Tennessee, and we got a lot of money from TVA to develop that property, and the county also put in money. When we sell that property, we're going to get that back. It'll go back into that industrial fund. So it was there, and it was used for that.
It was used for Chromebooks too, though, right?
I don't know. I know that was a proposal. I don't know that we actually used. I'll have to check on that. I know I suggested that, Ron.
Okay.
So, I mean, I wrote a letter because they were battling and they were looking at doing a tax increase. And I'm like, look, I mean, industry is also workforce development. We committed some of those funds to the TCAT Roan State Higher Ed facility that's like a gym in this community, brings people in from other areas, and we're training our own students. So I do think that has an industrial application. I would defend that as a really good investment by Anderson County government. And all of those things do have to go through commission. So the mayor can't, I can't just take the industrial funds and be writing a check. Sure. I mean, every single expenditure out of those funds has to go through commission.
But surely both of you can understand from a layman's point of view, person sitting back here, and the property tax that we pay,
right?
And it's not going for, or it's perceived not to be going for. We haven't built any new industry. I mean, we've had some grow, but we haven't bought any land. We haven't built any.
Yeah.
I mean, the premise that, you buy land and you recruit these great industries like we have with ICE and SL and some of these, I mean, I think everybody's for that, but I don't think it's feasible, and we're still collecting money to do it. I understand you've got a pile of money here and a need over here, and you say, well, we can tax people for this need, or we can borrow out of this fund, or we can reallocate this fund, but it's still not going for what it was supposed to go for.
And I think that was a legal opinion that it could be used for anything industrial. And I will say, I mean, I wasn't there when it happened, and I'm not trying to, cop out on that, but it was poor messaging, and it never should have been called. And if the intent in the legal opinion is that it can be used for any industrial purpose, then it should not have been called that this is 2 pennies to purchase industrial land. And there should have been, when the county, and this would include me and the commissioners, because the commissioners are the ones that appropriate money every year. The mayor doesn't appropriate money. They do it in a tax levy resolution. They set the tax rate. These are their primary duties. They set the tax rate, set the tax levy resolution, and primary duty number 2 is the appropriation resolution. And Ron, I'll just say here and now, there should have been better messaging, and I include myself on that because I'm very aware of where those funds are going, to say we're reallocating those 2 pennies. A half a penny is still going to the industrial fund. But I know we talked about it too on the radio. I mean, I think it was a big debate even at commission, like, are we going to repurpose these or take them somewhere else? I can remember back in the day, campaigning in 11-12 and talking to Mr. Warfield, and the county had, I don't know if they increased taxes or they just appropriated taxes to deal with the Blockhouse Valley landfill remediation. And Mr. Warfield was like, hey, that was covered, and where's my money back? And I'm like, well, I'll try to track it down, but it, once it comes in, then it starts, the government kind of will reappropriate it and put it somewhere else. And that's what happened. It's not that there was with that money that he asked me about, it's not that there's this secret fund that was building up and nobody knew about it, and then all of a sudden it was raided. That those funds collected were used for that purpose, and then instead of giving it back, they just used those pennies somewhere else.
The sheriff said he needs an increase in budget, $2 million. That's going to be roughly, depending on what the property tax rate is and what new development that we have. It's going to be dime 1.68 or 1.7 million, or maybe 12 cents tax increase to do that. How do each of you propose to fund what the sheriff needs? And well, first, do you agree that it's a need, not a want? And if so, how do you want to fund it? Who wants to go first?
I think it's a need. It's one of those things that if we don't do it, you're going to lose your level of service that you're used to, because we can't keep up with recruitment, or we're a training ground for everybody around us, because as soon as they go through the academy and do everything, they can hop over to Oak Ridge or Knox County or wherever. So we're going to have to do it. Now, I think there's ways to advocate for other sources besides property taxes. I mean, and a lot of this is going to take trying to advocate at the state level, but I feel like the tourism hotel motel tax, the sheriff, that department, the first responders, they work to protect the community and keep tourists safe while they're here, that sort of thing. Why can't some of that money be allocated for law enforcement and first responders?
What does that money go for at the moment that you would take away from?
Strictly tourism and development, which is, I think a little bit goes to the chamber, the tourism council and stuff. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying there's potential there. That's a potential source that I think we could justify. We've got the real estate transfer tax that we've been advocating to get a portion of, that the state keeps all of right now. If we could get half of that back, that'd be over $1 million a year. Now, the state likes to earmark what you can use if you get it, what you can use it for. The mineral severance tax that was brought up, I think that was going to be specifically for roads. But if we can advocate to bring some of these other sources in, then I think we can figure out a way to offset that $1.6 million hit that we take.
If you're elected as county mayor, will you veto a tax increase to fund the sheriff's department?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I think based on what you've said, based on what I've heard from everybody talking, especially this year being a reappraisal where most of the people I've talked to have paid more in taxes, I don't think they can handle a tax increase this year. I think we could fund it this year without a tax increase, personally. So we don't want to be against the raise, but if it involved a tax increase, I would have to veto it.
Mayor Frank, same question. Same question. How are we going to, if it's a need, that the sheriff's department, if it's a need, how would you as the mayor advocate to fulfill that need for the $2 million that our sheriff needs?
Well, I think the county, and I do speak up, Ron, and even when it's unpopular to speak up, so sometimes I'm on an island.
I don't know anything about that.
But, both of the things that Commissioner Anderson just brought up, those are future things, and these budget requests are now. And the tourism tax and what its uses are for is set by state law. And I've mentioned some of these things. I serve on TASSER. I've mentioned at TASSER, I love Commissioner Markezell, who's the tourism commissioner, but can we utilize some of these tourism receipts for things? I mean, even litter control. So, I look at, we've done litter pickup with our program before on some of the routes that have a lot of trash, and it's, you get a lot of heavy use, people riding ATVs, for instance, stuff flies out of the backpack or whatever. Can we use some litter funds, some tourism funds for that? Same thing with the real estate transfer tax. That has been something that we've worked on, the County Mayors Association, County Commission Association, Highway Officials Association. It's dead for this year, so we're going to work on it again. Hopefully next year we can get it put into the budget. Those are all future things.
But today,
where do we get the money? And I think it's going to have to be, you're going to, this will be a commission decision. It'll be a budget committee recommendation, and it'll be a full commission decision. And, the numbers, I go to all the budget committee meetings, unless I'm out of town. I go to a lot of meetings that I don't have to go to. And I have cautioned them on this. And I hear Commissioner Fritz, for example, always talking about funding recurring expenses with one-time money. And you're going to lock in a lot of big increases without the revenue. How are you going to get it done? And I think there may have to be some compromises where you phase in some increases. Nathan has, I think, the employees, if they know raises are coming, and you like working for Anderson County government, I think that can be a good compromise. Nathan has a plan, for instance, on his EMT and paramedics. I'm not a commissioner, Ron. I hear different opinions.
But
from
you can
all.
veto.
I can veto. But I also like to try to help them all compromise with each other and work out, what are some things you can look at? Can you cut this? Maybe do you get a win that they can agree to? If the funds aren't there, where are you going to get them?
And that's going to lead me to one of my next questions. And when you were talking, you said after the reappraisal, you don't think we can handle tax increase, and I agree with that. With that said, why is that? It's because we're already pretty highly taxed in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty highly taxed in the state. I think we're a pretty successful county. DOE, TVA, all the things that we have. If we're already high taxed, how did we arrive at a place where we can't afford our basic public safety needs if indeed we all agree that the Sheriff's Department, that this is a need? And I'm not disagreeing. I'm not saying we don't. I think it would be nice to have a forensic audit of the Sheriff's Department and a lot of departments like I said this to the sheriff, fresh eyes on sometimes can help, to maybe say you do need this and you don't need that, just to have a set of fresh eyes. But we're very highly taxed. Everybody agrees we don't need to pay more tax. Everybody also agrees we need more public safety money. How did we get where we are, where we're this high tax and can't afford what we need? That's like buying a car at your house that you can't afford to drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where we are as a county. How did we get into this position, and how do we get ourselves out of it where we can get our services operating at the level they're supposed to be without our taxes continuing to go up? Again, 95 counties, 79 pay less taxes than we do. And I would say out of those 79, many of them have as good service as we do. Maybe not all, but many.
Mm-hmm.
So how did we get here, and how do we get out of it outside of just raising taxes again?
Mm-hmm.
You want to start?
Again, I know she's pointed out that it's future stuff down the road, but that's we've still got to work at it, though. The future is coming. You've got to look for more creative ways to have funding rather than just putting it on the taxpayer's back. Now, I know Commissioner Wandell, for instance, has advocated, I think every year that I've been on commission, that we need to ask for more money from DOE
in lieu
land's assessed at like $50 an acre or something like that. I mean, is it just kind of a absentee non-entity that got the benefit of the low end of the reappraisal? Because every homeowner I know has paid more taxes this year after their reappraisal went up. So I don't think people can afford that double hit in one.
So how many years of taking from Peter to pay Paul do you expect before you can fund public safety at $2 million extra a year?
Well, I feel like we've got good state representatives that work for us. We've got the rainy day fund for the state is strong. So I feel like just advocating for, these are taxes that we produce here in Anderson County, these real estate transfer taxes. You're taking them all. We want some of them back. Our investments in tourism and development, that's going to go up. I think we're going to have, in addition to the nuclear renaissance with all the civil rights trails and things that are coming in, we're going to have more of a tourism, more growth in that. There's going to be more revenue off that. I think we just need to continue to lobby the state for this. This is what it costs us just to maintain it, for the maintenance of effort at the local level, and we cannot put it all on the taxpayers' backs. And they need to kind of lobby Nashville too. We need money released to us at the local level.
So this is going to sound crass, but it sounds like you're saying we don't have to live within our means if the state can give us more money.
No, I feel like it is living within your means because it's our money that the state's taking. The state.
But you don't get to change state law. You know what I mean?
No,
you're the county mayor.
But as a mayor, you can advocate for changing to make the state laws more fair. And if we can't cut this. There's maintenance of effort statutes. You can't just say we're cutting the school budget 10% this year. We're going to cut the sheriff 20% this year. You have to fund them at the level they've been funded. So if they need an increase, you've got to find it from somewhere. You've got to cut something. Now I'm open. If the public, if we want to look at where do you cut services, those are tough conversations, but that's the only other thing you can do if you feel like you've exhausted everything and you're not living within your means.
I mean, Frank, we've got a pretty healthy fund balance. Mm-hmm. Can we use part of the revenue that we have used to build that fund balance? Because we've had to contribute to that over the years, many years. Mm-hmm. And so that money's had to come from somewhere to contribute. Can that money be allocated, even if we didn't use the fund balance, if we just froze it? Mm-hmm. Could the money that we use to grow that fund balance be reallocated? And if so, how much is that?
Yeah, so when Commission approves a deficit budget, they're using the fund balance essentially as your guarantee for the ability to fund that annual budget. I do want to say a couple things. I do agree with Commissioner Anderson on continuing to work on state issues. So 2 of those I'm already worked on last year. My mindset has been partnership, working with the state. I was big on working on the sales tax effort, that instead of the cities getting all the sales tax for internet sales, it was redistributed to point of delivery. So if you're unincorporated in the county and you got your Amazon package back in the day, it didn't necessarily come to the county. That was a huge windfall for counties across the state of Tennessee. I hosted 2 solution summits to look at jails are our biggest liability. They're a major cost. And how can we look at solutions on things like medical care? And so as a host of 2 summits, we were able to get legislation passed at the state of Tennessee that basically when an inmate goes to the hospital, and sometimes they are hospitalized, if they were on TennCare when they came in, the way the federal government was pulling a fast one on us, they said, if you tell us that you have someone on federal government health care, we'll give you a few $100s for reporting them. Well, they just made bank and saved a lot of money
because
now we're responsible. And this legislation basically changed that, and it said if they are hospitalized, they're going to go back to TennCare, and it's no longer a local issue. There are things like that I have worked on. I sat at the table when the state of Tennessee negotiated the opioid settlements. The original proposal that came out of the state attorney general's office was that the state got the majority of the money. I advocated for the locality is where you suffered the direct damage. It was our EMS officials dealing with that. It was our law enforcement that was dealing with folks that were arrested for use. I mean, we had local injury. And so out of that, I held some phone calls with the mayors in East Tennessee, and we advocated for us getting a larger percentage, and we got that. So I am always on the lookout for how we can share costs. Those jail summit ended up producing some shared costs with formulary for pharmaceuticals, because when we join together, there's savings there. So I am always doing that. But at the end of the day, you still have to get through this annual budget year.
Now, how are you going to, both of you, balance this? Let's say that miraculously we find the money for the sheriff without a tax increase that he needs. What about the rest of the county employees? Are they not as important as the deputies and the sheriffs? If you ask the sheriff, he's going to say, we're out there fighting, we're committing violence on your behalf.
Yeah.
It's a harder job than, working at a window in the courthouse. And I don't mean to be disparaging to anybody, but that's kind of the conversation. But at the same time, county employees, I'm getting, God, that's what I go, what about the rest of us?
Absolutely, yes. And I mean,
how do you give raises to everybody?
I mean, I did express that, and it's not anything. I mean, these are the tough decisions you have to make. And the mayor used to be over the budget committee. The mayor used to have the responsibility of proposing a budget.
Yes.
And in many ways, I'm sure some of the officials miss those days, because then in a tough year like this, going to be
the mayor's
the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's the mayor's fault. The mayor, she didn't put this in the budget, or she told us no. And now under the 81 Act, that's not the process anymore. So these are going to be tough decisions that the county commission is going to have to make. I have heard from different ones, and you just don't know what they land on. I do think if I were a betting person, which I'm not, if I were, I think you're going to get some kind of compromise, because the funds are not there for that level of a deficit in order to get all of those raises. And then they're also aware of other agencies that have wage disparities. Then you have all of the remainder of the employees who also want to raise. And so I think there's going to be, some compromise, and that's what compromise is. Everybody's, a little bit unhappy and a little bit happy.
I just can't get past the fact that, of the counties that are taxed less than us, they don't, and maybe they have these problems, it's just we don't know about them. But it just seems like with as high of a property tax as we pay, we ought to be able to fund public safety. We ought to be able to give raises without having to go to our fund balance or rainy day balance. Mm-hmm. We ought to be able to function with what we make. And it feels like, every time we come to budget, not every time, but many times, we're not operating on what we make.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back. I was like a beagle after a squirrel in the high weeds, but on the fund balance, we got to look at one of the reasons we have been able to build our fund balance. And I'm going to credit our county commissioners with this. When we did receive an influx of funds from the American Rescue Plan, our commissioners, and I know I was part of this and being at all of those meetings and also making my own recommendations. The commission chose to fund for the most part, items that we regularly purchase. So they didn't go out and say, we're going to build a new this, or we're going to start a new program. We're going to hire a bunch of new people and see if this works. They said, we know we need ambulances. We know we need police cars. We know we need these particular items. We're going to go ahead and spend these dollars on those items, and that will help us build our fund balance. So a lot of that fund balance, it was proper allocation or use of those American Rescue Plan dollars, but those dollars aren't there anymore, Ron.
Exactly.
And so now, where are you going to get the funds? And this is why capital planning is so important. Where are you going to get them to buy your police cars, your ambulances? Because that continues. I mean, you don't stop.
That's the $1 million question, though. Where are we going to get it? And then even if you do find it for the sheriff's department, and we all agree it's a need, then you've got trustee and clerk and court and folks that said, hey, what about us? We work hard, too, every day. And that, I don't even know what that budget would look like. But where do you find it? I mean, it's one thing to say we need to find it, we got to find it, but where is there to look? And if we know, why aren't we already doing it? Any ideas where we find it? I mean, Josh?
Well, unfortunately, we are limited on where we can raise money, and in Anderson County, it's unfortunately falls on the property taxpayers' backs a lot. So that's why if we're not successful with these other revenue sources, we are going to have to look at cutting some services ones, but that's like, we've discussed, the budget process is it's going to take 9 commissioners to pass it, whatever the outcome is.
I may be naive, and I may be proven totally wrong, but I believe with $154 million a year, we ought to be able to run this county and fund it appropriately. Again, I know the schools are a huge, huge part of it, but still, that's a doggone lot of money.
Well, I look at the city of Oak Ridge. I look years ago, a good friend of mine worked for the city. He's recently retired within the last year. And the city had an incentive program where if you came up with a great idea that saved the taxpayers a lot of money, saved the city a lot of money, then they incentivized and gave you a bonus.
Got a little.
And,
That's
the easy default is to say, we're going to raise taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
shortest distance between the two goals. Yeah.
But I think we should do more to ask our own employees that are working in the fields and they're rolling up their sleeves doing the actual work. How can we do it better? And I do think there are things that as a government, the commission makes a decision on. I mean, we've got, back in the day, they built the juvenile court across the street in the Jolly building. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's now 2 sets of security. There's double equipment. There's staff for each court. And was that the wisest decision? I mean, maybe at the time it was, but there are a lot of decisions that we're here now because those decisions were made at some point in time. Could we figure out a way to do that better at some point? Maybe, but we've got to set a plan.
I don't think any commissioner or mayor should ever agree to a tax increase before every single office in our county government has had a forensic audit that could go through and find, I'm not going to say wasted funds, but maybe reallocated funds. Have we ever had a county-wide, all of our departments looked into, I say forensic audit, but I'm talking about a close audit to help. And again, I know people that are department heads are cringing right now, but I mean it to help, to find money without having to take away from their current operation where they maybe spend, like you were just talking about, duplicate expenses. I'm sure there are probably other duplicate expenses inside the county that if you found them and recognized them, somebody could come up with an idea to merge them into one and save some money. Have we ever had an audit of everything, to either of your knowledge?
Well, we're audited by the state of Tennessee, and so they
just make sure we're spending it legally.
Yeah,
they don't,
yeah. Well, they do pull transactions. I mean, they will. I mean, they'll pull purchase orders, and they pull. They're not looking at absolutely everything, but they do test various areas, cash counts. They go into an operation. They just, it's limited. So they may look at different things each year. The state comptroller may say, hey, this is a year we want to really examine your computer purchases. And they've done that. They've looked at your, contracts. They've looked at the actual purchases. They look at asset tags. I can remember when I first came in, they said, you better get a handle on your assets, or we're going to come in. We're going to have every sheriff's vehicle come through. We're going to check for the radio. We're going to look at all of these things, and then we're going to give you the bill from the comptroller's office. And I just showed up for the job. Yeah. And so they do look at things, but not to the extent that you're talking about, Ron.
Well, I don't know. Do you believe that would be something that would be helpful, hurtful in the way? I mean,
it would never hurt to have a fresh set of eyes, for somebody to ask, why do we do it this way, or why are you doing it this way? I think that's a good thing. And I actually, I think Commissioner Vandergrift, maybe on the budget committee, somebody had made the recommendation for all the departments to cut 2 or 3% from they had a flat budget proposal and then cut that to a couple percent just as a start to kind of
in an effort to try and find the money for public safety.
Deficit. Yeah, well, not and just for kind of just closing the whole deficit on the entire budget, but yeah.
And again, I keep beating on the same dead horse, but it just seems like if we've got money to cut, that we should have saw that going into it and not allocated it if they didn't need it.
Well, I mean, we don't know.
They need it.
Here's the thing, Ron. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, until budget committee's going to have some workshops. So I don't want folks out in the audience to, again, I'm not proposing the budget, but I also don't want people to commit harry-carry and.
Well, I mean, the only way to fund right now, if you guys agree that the sheriff needs $2 million a year, there's only one place to get it, and that's us, the taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's an audit that shows there's money somewhere else or some other function, that's it. Either we agree with that and, that's how we're going to do it, or we agree with it and we're going to try and find a different way to do it, or we disagree with it and kick the can down the road. I don't, you tell me if there are other options. I don't know.
Well, federal, state, local, it's all politics. And so every vote does not take place in a vacuum, and it's not always about, what makes the best financial sense, or it's taken in a snapshot in time. And it's an election year. I think you're going to see the commission weigh these wants, but they also have races. And so I would say you'll probably get maybe, and the county has had to make tough decisions before. You look at the 08, 09 economic downturn, and then you basically had really tough times in all governments. And you just had some stability budgets. I think the county will have that kind of decision to make unless you're going to just leave a time bomb, they're going to do something like maybe last year's budget and then give some salary increases and try to find the funds for that. I mean, that would be my prediction.
Okay.
But
any, weigh in any at all?
Just, the people that are supporting me, the people that I've represented as a commissioner, I know kind of that mandate is they feel like about half their income goes to taxes in one form or another, whether it's on the light bill or income, whatever. They feel like half of it goes out to some kind of tax.
Sure.
So I feel like a lot of people are kind of at a breaking point of they can't handle another increase right now. So that's why I just think we've got to get creative, whether it is with some type of forensic audit, trying to get cooperation from the state, however we do it, or the compromise where it's, maybe not quite the 15% raise they're asking for, but something that will at least keep them with us, kind of a good faith gesture. I think there's going to be a lot of options probably thrown on the table. I don't expect this to be an early budget year. I don't think we're going to have a budget to vote on in May or June or anything like that.
I know there are a lot of people out there wanting me to have this fiery conversation with you guys, a finger pointing and personal, but I like both of you. I know both of you. I count both of you as friends. I know Mayor Frank, I've saw on social media a lot of people, and Josh, I think all three of us are going to fall on the same place on this. But when we talk about the senior center, people were talking about the huge mistake with 205 Main. That was not the mayor's fault, and I don't necessarily believe it was Commission's fault in all sincerity. But does anybody want to expound on that or expand a little bit about what happened? I can if you don't want to.
It was bought before I came along. I was hesitant at first to sell it because I didn't want to take the loss. And space is another one of those issues in county government. Everybody wants space. Everybody needs more space. So I didn't feel like I was a little reluctant to give up space. But I've not really brought 205 up much. The issues that I have heard issues about current things going on at the senior center, things that people don't like, whether it's the coffee getting cut off or food or whatever. But it's, there's stuff, but it's not, to me, I don't think 205's not been a big issue to me this time around.
Okay.
I don't think. I've not heard much about it.
And it's kind of
well, I see where I get, it's the mayor's fault, kind of like the commission passed the request for 2% cut, and there's folks saying, well, the mayor wants to. Well, I don't produce a budget, but I understand there's tough times. But Ron, fortunately, you played a lot of audio recording on your show that clarified that it wasn't the mayor who was responsible for that purchase. In fact, my one vote on it, I voted no, and that was to borrow funds for that purchase. I did go to the ADA committee and express concerns. There was no inspection. And I'll say, a commission did it. I didn't stand up there and beat up on commission or anything. I was excited for the seniors, but we got in there and that building had a lot of issues. Yeah. And the mold was something that we really could not overcome. I think where it is now, it was a loss, but you do have that particular business in our community doing business.
Sure. Making money,
returning money to the taxpayers. It locks them into our community. It's being used in a way where those issues, it's more of a garage. So where we were operating with vulnerable adults, some with lung issues, I can remember one gentleman coming to my office and saying, what are you going to do to protect my wife? Mm-hmm. And here is her lung disease. And those were scary times. And the county is very lucky that that time has passed and we were not sued for those conditions.
I think everybody would agree that 96 Mariner Point ended up being a good thing for our seniors.
Absolutely.
I know it's a little further for them to drive, and now we're going to have a red light up there. Thank you, City of Clinton. And that will hopefully eliminate that at the time that was proposed. That was
Ron, we also have a building that we paid less than the appraisal rate.
I remember.
And it's right, in an ideal place in Mariner Point, which is a high value location. And Faith Promise Church sold it at a discounted rate because they saw what had happened. They wanted the seniors to have a space. Yes. They wanted to help the county. And so we did come out ahead with that particular piece of property. So any loss, if you look at the balance sheet, it was a wash. So,
well, I'm going to give you guys each an opportunity to talk about anything I haven't asked. I wish both of you good luck in what I don't envy you at all with just the small that I've got my toe in it. I feel a little bit of your pain, not anywhere near the entire county. So first of all, thank you both for running, for trying to make our county better. And I believe both of you have that desire to make our county a better place to live. So thank you for doing that. But I'll let you go first, Josh. Is there anything that you want to say or that you want to express to people that I've not asked you about?
Just that I hope people exercise their right to vote. We've got 53,000 registered voters in the county, and we have such a small percentage that vote in the primaries. 6,000 last time. I don't know what we'll have this time, but and these primaries have been. It's like the county kind of mauls each other during these primaries, even within the Republican primary. It's just, and it's both sides. I try to rein people in. It's the same things that I'm getting called today are things that Rick Scarborough got called 2 years ago. There was it even went so far as there was a vote to throw his election out. That the majority of Anderson Countyans had voted for him, and there was a vote. Maybe the mayor can expand on that, because I think she made the motion in the executive committee to throw Rick's election out. But there's stuff like that concerns me when you've got incumbents that are on the executive committees that can make rules right before elections about who's allowed to run, who's allowed to vote. That's not a free and fair election, and that's something that concerns me. And
but did you now? With that said, did you hear when Zach Farah was here as the head of the Republican Party here in Anderson County, and how he explained that? Did you happen to?
I did. I listened, but I think it's like there's like a kind of a backward push. There's people that want to close the primary without closing the primary. So if you want to vote and close the primary, that's fine. I think if they do that, they should pay for it with party funds, not public funds. But I think the language is still vague. I think it scares more people than it. I think it's designed to kind of confuse and scare people. It's not to protect any kind of party integrity at all, I don't think.
Well, how would that? Do you think that benefits the Republicans that are doing it? For people, I mean,
I think it's designed to discourage people from running and to kind of protect people in power already. And then I've heard one defense was, well, this is actually language that the Democratic Party put in place back in the 70s. Well, why are we trying to follow and do what the Democrats are doing? I thought we were I thought we're trying to be something different. So to me, I think we should be focused on growing the party, not trying to limit who's allowed to vote.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So since we opened up a new topic, and then I'll do my closing.
Okay.
The parties are private organizations. Thank you so much for doing that particular show with Zach Farah. It was very educational. He walked everyone through case law. My issue, and if you watch anything I said with regard to the Scarborough race, it was not about Rick Scarborough. I never said anything about Mr. Scarborough. In fact, I work very well with him right now on many issues, on some of the legislation. He'll give me a call. I'm happy to work with him. So it's not about Rick, the person. It is about disenfranchising people who are associating or affiliating with a party. So I'm going to give you an example, Ron. I'm getting ready to go vote, and I'm going to vote for myself.
Yes.
And there
you
is
can vote for me too. You're not in my district.
There is a sitting member of the Democrat Party who is the Democrat Party treasurer who is donated to Josh. And so by her very position on the Democrat Party, she is saying, I am a Democrat. Okay. If she goes in and votes, and I'm tracking the bona fide active voters, people that have been bona fide, both of their voting record and their open affiliated status. If she goes in to vote, that will disenfranchise my vote as a member of the Republican Party. And it's not, if you look at the constitutional right of people to associate, Zach went over that on the particular radio program.
Yes.
And I have been in the business of recruiting people to the party. That's been my life. And you could talk to Jeff Cole. You can talk to Tim Shelton. As the party grew more and more left, and I can remember talking to Tim Shelton the year the party wanted to remove God, under God. The Democrat Party wanted to remove under God from their platform. I said, Tim, you're a pastor. You're going to be more at home. The party, and the South was solidly dim. Their views changed, and so the party's changed. I've been somebody who's asked people to vote Republican, come join us, the water's warm, but it's based on principles and values. It's not what I think is going on at a smaller level. I don't think it's widespread, but I think you have folks that are not Republicans that are coming in, and they're coming in to vote against me as the Republican. So
I want to say that treasurer, she's a veteran, her husband's a veteran, and she's not crossing over to vote. And she
good.
Told
That's
me,
good.
She's
That's
like,
good.
I can't vote for you, Josh, but you're my friend. Stick a sign in my yard. And I said, sure. I think we can go through decades and decades. I cannot possibly be the first Republican candidate that got a donation from a Democrat in Anderson County. That's everybody knows everybody. So I think, I just don't think that is as big of an issue. If this is a friend of mine, it's not a check from George Soros, it's a check from a friend of mine.
Well, you've been accused of getting checks from George Soros
I've gotten accused of that, and I hadn't checked the mail today, so I don't know for sure, but I'm not.
Well, there's quite a few. There's quite a few members of Indivisible. There's not just the two members. His two top donors are active Democrats. They're on the Democrat Party webpage, building something for the headquarters. And, is it a free country? Yeah, he's free to accept those funds. But also voters who are going to vote in the Republican primary are free to question the why. Why would they be comfortable doing that? Why, does he align with their values, or where you take money from anyone? Those are questions that are fair to ask as well.
They are fair. I agree. And the why is, 2 terms as their commissioner. They feel like I'm somebody that they could work with, whether we see eye to eye all the time. And so I think that, but to me, something that really just shocked me in 2024 was when someone wins the majority in an election, a solid guy like Rick Scarborough, and there's a threat of overturning that.
Mayor, what prompted, and I know you said the law, the guidelines, but what prompted that request to reevaluate that vote?
Because of the sheer number of crossover votes. And so there was an attorney, for instance, that spoke, and if you go back and you look at what he said, and he's been an attorney for the state of Tennessee, he said it is an issue, but he did not believe the number of crossover votes impacted the election, and therefore it should not be overturned. And so there is an acknowledgement that it's an issue. It's being debated currently. And I have been an advocate at the state level. So if you look at this law, it talks about prosecution. And I'm for registration, maintaining the ability of each organization, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, to have their affiliation, but there needs to be some guardrails. I'm not for prosecuting people. I don't think that's the right answer, and I've advocated for that in my position on the state executive committee. I've said, This is not about closing primaries. It shouldn't be about prosecution. Let's just create a registration system that keeps people honest.
Yeah.
You can go change. They've done it in Florida. They do it in the majority of states across the United States of America. You register and you say, you know what, I don't really align with that party anymore. You go change your voter registration. But it just helps keeps people honest about their affiliation with whatever private organization they want to be affiliated with.
I know you've already given kind of closing statements, and I hate to keep asking other stuff, but I just want to yes or no if we can do it. Transgender people, boys and girls sports, right or wrong? Josh?
Wrong. Definitely
wrong.
Okay, so we're in agreement on that. A couple of things. I'm just trying to cover things that people had asked me to talk about, but didn't necessarily impact our county, but it could. It could somewhere down the road. Mayor, if you want to, anything I hadn't asked or anything you want to say in closing?
Well, I just want to say to the voters that are out there in the listening audience that I do understand at the end of the day, at the beginning of every day, that I work for them. I consider the taxpayer my boss. I don't think, the mayor, I'm very respectful of my authority. And you'll hear, if you've ever watched the commission meetings over the years, a lot of times you'll hear commissioners say, well, Mayor, what do you think? And I will often say, well, it's your decision. I mean, I'm the mayor, but it's a commission decision. But if you want my personal opinion, here are my thoughts. Very cognizant of my statutory roles and my constitutional roles. I believe in our United States Constitution. I believe in the rights of the people who call Anderson County home. I love Anderson County. I want it to continue to be a prosperous place where people have opportunity. I think that I know that I'm not single-handed. I acknowledge that in making our county stronger and better financially, but I've been a big part of it. And even when it is a commission decision, I will speak up and I will speak out, and I'm present and I'm aware. And then also I want folks to know that on an individual basis, even this morning, I helped a citizen. A lot of times people don't know government and how to access and who does what, and is this a utility issue? Is this, a court issue? And I'm quick to say I don't have any authority over that area, but let me see if I can help facilitate and answer for you. And my office is open to people. I don't care who you are, it's open, and I would love to have the consideration of the folks that are listening of their vote. And I promise to keep working hard.
I know you both have gave your closing statements. I want to ask one more thing.
Yes, sir.
And Josh is going to be kind of more geared to you because it was on social media recently, and I meant to ask it earlier, and I apologize. But you recently married a same-sex couple with your authority as commissioner, and I know you got pushback on that. I just want your thoughts on, A, why you did it, B, obviously, do you agree with same-sex marriage? And just give me where you stand on that.
I signed up early on, or I guess you call it signing up when you get elected and sworn in. They say, do you want to do this? Do you want to, you can marry people. Do you want to be on the list or whatever you want? And I said, sure. So I've done it for a lot of people, and it's one of those things. We don't do it at the courthouse anymore for whatever logistical reasons. They just don't do it. But people get their license, they pay for the license at the courthouse, and they need somebody to sign it and make it legal. I don't probe into people's personal lives, and I don't make judgments. I've married people that I thought maybe were a little too young to get married or whatever reason. A lot of the people, vast majority of the people that I marry cannot get their pastor to marry them because they've been divorced in the past or something. And so they're a Baptist, but the Baptist preacher will not do that. Sometimes, so I've married people in that circumstance, or people that are 8 months pregnant and they're kind of in a hurry. They're not coming to me to officiate some lavish wedding. They just need the papers signed. And to me, I consider it a public service. It's one of those, most of the time I need 8 other commissioners to agree with me to get something done, but that's one of those things I can do for free, and I can do it easy, and I can make somebody's day. And as far as things that I don't agree with, I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm also on the beer board. I've never drank a beer in my life, but I serve on there with Tim Isabel, and we approve permits. We make sure they're the right distance from the church and the right distance from the school. We collect revenue off of that. We spend it. The teetotalers appreciate what we spend it on just as much as anybody that likes to drink. So as a public servant, you do have to kind of walk that balance of, are you staying true to yourself, but are you representing everybody? And that's what I felt like I did.
Mary Frank, do you want to weigh in on that at all?
Well, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. And, back in the day, I worked with my husband and Bill Dunn, for a constitutional amendment that marriage is between a man and a woman. And I don't think any of that prohibits someone from having a civil, under the law, it's civilly allowed. But from a religious standpoint, I can't, it's no faith if you don't stand on your belief. And it doesn't mean that I hate somebody, that I wouldn't direct them to, someone who could help them, but I could not do that myself. No, sir.
Thank you both for coming in here. Yes, sir.
To be clear, there is on every marriage license in Tennessee, it says, is this a civil or a religious ceremony? And 100% of the time I put civil because I'm not ordained. It's just as my capacity as a commissioner. So that's just for what that's worth.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming in here. Again, I know folks are wanting some kind of big controversy and wanting us to have a knockdown, drag out. But I feel like for the voters that are out there, if there are people that are undecided, I feel like the issues, I really believe in all my heart that we're facing a tax increase. I just don't see any other way around it. Again, being outside looking in, I'm asked to be in the inside so I can look, but from the outside looking in, I don't see any other alternative. If we're going to be able to fund the things we got.
You said you weren't going to have any controversy or fighting words. Those are fighting words,
Well, I don't see an alternative, and I hope you guys can find one, or I hope one can be found. I'll put it to you that way. And, thank you for coming in. Thank you for talking to all of it. I hope that we've covered everything. And I know there's going to be people. I've got folks that are wanting me. I told folks they had the email, so folks are asking me to ask stuff. I'm not doing it because they didn't follow the rules. So I'm going to have people mad at me. But
well, you're the toughest interview in town, Ron. So, and I'm saying that not just, with Josh and I here, and I want to thank him for being here. Just any time of the year if you come on your show, you're going to ask us the tough questions.
I'm going to ask what people ask me.
Yes.
It's not necessarily me as much as it is people that, they listen to us because they and without them, I wouldn't be here. So I have to do what they ask me to do, and I don't mind it. But thank you. I think that's actually a compliment. Yeah. Thank you. And Josh, thank you for coming. I've told people before, me and you disagreed on the senior center at one point, and then I came up and spoke to your constituents, if you remember that, up at the museum. And I've always appreciated the opportunity that you allowed me to do that. And Mayor, you've allowed me numerous opportunities like that. We've served on boards together on the city and numerous other things. So I've got to work with both you guys, and I appreciate what you do. I appreciate your service to our county, and I'll be glad when this election is over. So,
me too.
Guys, thank you very much for joining us, and for those of you listening, I hope that we've covered the ground that you want us to cover, and if we missed something, if you'll ask me, I'll seek these two out and ask them and report back to you. But in the meantime, you guys have a fantastic day, and thanks for listening to us here on WYSH. Powell Clinch Utility District wants to make your next home improvement a success. Their appliances are made with you in mind to update your kitchen, laundry room, and provide you with endless hot water. Want to improve your outdoor living? PCUD sells griddles, grills, and fire pits, all powered by natural gas, so you never have to fill a tank again. They also offer appliance installation and 0% financing added directly to your monthly bill. Visit PCUD Showroom in Rocky Top, their website at pcud.org, or call 865-426-2822 to learn more. PCUD is your natural gas provider.
Thank you for listening to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Make sure you tune in at 10 a.m. each day, Monday through Friday, right here on AM 1380 WYSH.